there's just a lot of being curious and figuring things out and being flexible. I think that's one of the biggest things, is being flexible with where you're at, and where, like you said, what got you here isn't, going to take you where you need to go. And so, okay, so this isn't working, so I'm going to try something else. Focusing on what's my sweet spot, what are people looking for, and trying to match those two up is really kind of where I'm at.
Welcome back to the show. Today we're with one of my favorite smart women, Beth McCord, better known as Your Enneagram Coach. Beth is giving us the behind the scenes from building her wildly successful business. I really love doing these Smart Girl summer episodes so much because I learned so much. I'm learning from my colleagues. I'm learning what's working or what's not working right now. And I think you're going to love it too. If you have loved her Enneagram work, you're really going to love just her heart. We've had her on before. So in a previous episode, we've told her backstory. This is more of her current story. So I do recommend you going back and listening to Smart Girl Summer with Beth in the past. We will link it in the show notes too. After we talk with Beth, it's time for coaching. I got to say, I think this one is a fun one. Today, I'm giving you new ways of thinking about getting unstuck. You've probably heard all the same trite advice about getting unstuck. I'm not going to give you trite advice. I'm here to give you the good stuff. Now, for the final segment of the show, I'm bringing you a new tip on where to get new free audiobooks. Okay, without further ado, here's my friend Beth. Beth McCord, welcome back to the show and welcome to Smart Girl Summer. I'm so glad that you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is going to be so much fun.
You are a brilliant businesswoman and a brilliant Enneagram teacher, all things the Enneagram you know all about. We've had you on before. We kind of know a little bit about your background and how you got into this and how you really built something step by step when there wasn't a path. And you kind of saw where the ball was going down the field and followed it really well, and it lined up with what you loved. I'd love to talk to you this time on this episode about what you see working in 2024. What are the things maybe that were working before and aren't working quite as well? And what's working in 24? What does that look like for you? What are you seeing?
Honestly, there's still a lot of question marks, because I feel like things are changing really rapidly. And I think that has a lot to do with the economics that's going on. I think just the way society is unfolding, with the election coming up, I think there's just a lot happening that people are just kind of almost becoming numb, and they don't really know what to do with life. They're spent on finances. Pun was not intended, but they're literally spending so much money on the
groceries.
On the groceries and the gas and the medicine, that they don't even have a lot of extra to spend on fun stuff. But I think they're also spent internally. I think people are having a hard time just having fun or knowing what fun they should do, and then do they have the money for it? So I think things are definitely changing. And so even I think for us, we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of, okay, what do people need? What are those pain points, and how can we address them? Now, we're an online marketing, kind of business, so to speak. And so what we've kind of noticed recently is people are kind of burnt out with online stuff, like Zoom and those kinds of things. I get it, especially after the pandemic. So I think things are shifting a little bit more to in person. And that's wonderful, but it's also super challenging, especially if, like me, you've really done most of the stuff online. Now, we've done some events in person, and it's its own beast. And are we able and willing to pivot in that direction and maybe forego some of the other things that we were doing online? And that can be its own challenge. So we're still trying to kind of figure out, where is 2024 going and what are people needing? And I think it's just still evolving. I don't think it's cut and clear quite yet.
Well, that's why I start with that question. I've been asking a lot of women this summer, what do you see happening right now? Where do you think things are going? Because we are, for everything that you just mentioned, we're going through such rapid change, and everyone is trying to figure out, okay, what's working? We all
Yeah.
know at the core, we serve our people well and we give them what they need. But also in business, it is our job to also find new people to
Yes.
continually help and to grow. And um, a lot of times what got us here won't get us there. So
No.
just figuring out, okay,
And
where do we put our energy? Go ahead.
And the other frustrating thing is how the algorithms change on social media. And so, what people were really diving into maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, it's like crickets now. And so it's like, okay, is that because people aren't interested in that content, or is that the algorithm has changed and it's literally not getting to people? And so I'm finding actually that it's not getting to people more than the other. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I get it to people? Sometimes, so then you have to figure out all of that stuff and okay, what do you need to change? And our daughter is a social media manager. And, even for me, it's like, help, like where's the change happening? Like, what do I need to do? And I think it's just exhausting to constantly having to keep up with the next change and the next thing. And so like I said, we're still trying to figure out, but it's worth it because the content we do have is life-changing for people and it's super helpful. And I think that's what makes me sad is that the great content that I do and all the content that people that are listening do needs to get out there. And I think there are a lot of things that are just keeping it bound up. And I wish there was quicker, easier solutions for us. But I think right now, it's just going to be kind of walking through the fog and trying to figure it out as we go.
Yeah. I'm sure you saw this, but Instagram announced recently that this summer, I think it's to compete with TikTok because how much growth people can get on TikTok, that they are going to boost small creators, I guess, small under 1 million, I don't know, small creators post to more people to help smaller accounts get growth. And so I think that is a really smart move for them to compete with TikTok. But hopefully it'll breathe new life into things. So let's go deeper with what you were just talking about. Yeah. I realize this is just for you and your audience, but can you give an example of something that was working really well on social, but now you're reevaluating that it isn't working quite as well?
Yeah. So our daughter was our social media manager up until about September. And then she got a really nice offer that we were like, okay, we can't match that. So go be, which is great because, as a parent, you're like super proud, but then it's like, oh, that's so hard. And so she was also a super fun presence and she got a lot of traction for us. But since then, it's me, myself, and I, which is great and super hard, right? Because I'm stretched in other areas, so I can't focus on it like she did. So what she was doing was a lot of carousel reels, and with the 9 types, then all 9 types were kind of engaging with that, and there was a lot more likes, so it looked like there was a lot more engagement. Because I didn't have as much bandwidth when I started taking it over, I was like, okay, I'm just going to post like 1 a day, for 2, so the same topic, but over the course of, it was like 2 a day. So Monday through Friday, it'd be 2 a day except for Friday. And I just wasn't getting hardly any engagement, which was totally different from back in the day when I was doing the social media myself. Yeah. There was tons of people of that type that were responding. Now, every type has a little bit difference in like type 5s just don't respond very much. Whether there's just not a lot of type 5s out there or they're just being quiet or they're doing other things, but 9s are always responding, but not lately. And so that's where I was like perplexed, like, okay, well, I'll go back to what Libby was doing and let's try and see if that works. And it is because the 9 types kind of are looking and engaging, but they're still not the same engagement. And so I just have to keep kind of figuring it out. Is it that I'm not asking the right questions? Is the content good, but it's not drawing them in to comment? So there's just a lot of being curious and figuring things out and being flexible. That's, I think that's one of the biggest things, is being flexible with where you're at, and where, like you said, what got you here isn't, going to take you where you need to go. And so, okay, so this isn't working, so I'm going to try something else. And trying it long enough to see if it's working or not, that can be tricky too.
Yeah.
And so for us, I would say, and then the other thing is, I feel like people, and maybe this is the Enneagram space because there's more people that are aware of it. They've kind of consumed it. So they might be less interested in just content. They might want more real life examples, or for me to like go into, well, this is what I experienced today. And I've got to figure out how to do that, because that's just not my natural personality, Now, if someone's talked like this, oh, I could do this all day long. So then, okay, well, if that's how I work best, how can I get that videoed and make them into reels and chop them up? And do I have the time and the space? So there's just a lot of different things to consider, but focusing on what's my sweet spot, what are people looking for, and trying to match those two up is really kind of where I'm at, honestly.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so it's just an evolving process.
Well, I always think when I see a business owner on social media all day long, if there's 50 stories and then there's all these posts, and I go, oh, that person's job is actually social media, because your job can't be something else if that's what you're doing all day. And it is hard for those of us running our own businesses to go, okay, how much time do I put into this to keep serving people? But at the same time, I actually have work to do too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's hard, because how do I engage with the audience? Because I want to, but I'm writing books, or I'm, training people, or the different things that we've got going on. But my audience is so crucial and important to me as well. So how do I make sure I'm engaging with them at the right pace? And that's where, especially learning from my daughter, how to maximize my time in creating a lot of content and getting it scheduled so it kind of comes out, in due time. So basically batch recording, or batch creating post is really important. And so if I can do that, that really helps me to kind of stay in the game, but not an everyday situation. And then there's always those one-offs, like when I was reading my audiobook, I kind of took people on, behind the scenes for those 2 days, and that was really fun. So there's always, those one-offs that happen, but scheduling can be a real game changer. The other thing, and she's actually doing a course on mini chat, which is basically,
nice.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. Her boss, got her this course, and there's just like all the things you could do, which I laughed, and I said, well, mine is like, you do this, it triggers this, and that's it. And, she's got all these other things that are happening. So it can go really far, but it doesn't have to. It can be just something simple. Like, so type in the word, moms in the comments, and I'm going to send you a link to pre-order our book, Enneagram for Moms. And so just setting up that one little trigger can be so helpful, not just for me, because it automatically happens in the background, but it's also really helpful for the person, because then they get that link right away. They don't have to like figure it out and go somewhere. So there are a lot of wins out there that hopefully we can learn. And there's, free things to, like TikTok, you can listen to social media managers there, or on YouTube, just to figure out, just to get you a little edge up, versus figuring you have to be a social media manager. We don't have the time for that. And so what can we do with the time we have and maximize it? That, I think, is the key here.
That's fantastic. Going back to how you manage your time, this is what I want to get into. What does an average day look like for you? Or are you batching, on this day I'm doing video, this day I'm doing content creation? How do you manage all the things that you have to do? What is your system?
That's a great question. And I recently got diagnosed with ADHD. So I'm like, oh, okay, so that's why it's not always consistent. I try to be consistent, but I definitely get motivated by deadlines, or like a spark of inspiration, and like I'm all in, and I get consumed with a project. And so it can be a little all over the place. But what I typically like to do is I have an ideal week. So I used to work for Michael Hyatt, and they have, an ideal week. So what would it look like if your ideal week could just pan out that way? And so I'm usually much better in the morning with creativity. And so I try to block off most mornings just to be my creative space. It's whether I'm writing or I'm getting inspired, but that doesn't always work out. But if I can at least try to block that off, I know I'll get maybe 2 or 3 mornings a week that can happen. Sometimes, our team needs to have a meeting in the morning because other team members, they don't work in the afternoons. And so, it has to be somewhat flexible. So I try to do that. And then around lunchtime is when I usually meet with like my executive assistant, because by that time she's figured, the day out, what's going on that week. And then we catch up. She gives me insight. I kind of answer questions for her so then she can go off and complete her work. And then the afternoon is pretty much when I do meetings. Now, that could be totally the opposite for some people. I know for my husband, he doesn't wake up until about he's awake, but he doesn't wake up until like 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So he's not going to be the best in those early hours where I am. And so just figuring out what works best for you in the jobs you have for you is, I think, what's really key. I think one of my favorite things to do is to be on people's podcasts. I love, I could do that at any time of the day, any day of the week. I love it. So that's my absolute sweet spot. And so I don't have to figure out when I should do that. I'm like, yeah, schedule it whenever. I'm just going to enjoy it. So there are going to be those things that are just your sweet spot, but the things that are really hard for you, my son is an ADHD coach, certified coach. And so I've been talking to him lately about it. And he said, Mom, it's really good. You have green light things, yellow light things, and red light things. So the green light things are like me being on your podcast, like, I could do that all day. Totally go for it. It's not going to wear me out. And then there's the yellow things that you just do a few of those maybe a day, because those are going to wear you out. And there's the red things that are like, they are so taxing on you. And he's like, Mom, you do a lot of red things, and you're getting worn out. And I try to only have one red thing a day if I can. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to really think about that. So I need to do even a better job looking at my calendar and protecting myself from getting too many of the red things on my plate and delegating to the best of my ability. So that's something I'm actually even working on right now.
That's fantastic. My brain is spinning. Like, what are my red things? Okay. Not to get too personal, but give us some red things. What are some things Beth needs to do less of so she can focus on what she loves to do?
Okay. I would say, and for some people, this is totally not the case. This is their sweet spot. I hate brainstorming with people.
I do too.
And the reason is, as a type 9 on the Enneagram, my natural, like what I gravitate towards is making people happy. And so when someone expresses like, we could do this and this would be fun, that would be fun, my body and my mind think we have to do all of it when they are just ideas, and probably 99% of them are going to be shut down. But I instantly think through all the things that are going to have to happen for that said project. And I get super overwhelmed and I just want to shut it all down, which isn't helpful for the whole brainstorming process. So in our company, usually what I do is I have the team come up, that you all go do some brainstorming. You get all of those out and then come up with your top 3 ideas and pitch them to me. And then let me know what it is that you guys are actually brainstorming, and let me see if I get inspiration too. And then we'll come together. And so we're a little bit more dialed in than this random throw up any idea that you have that just totally wears me out. But I have some friends on the team that is absolutely their favorite thing to do. And they'll just keep coming up with thing after thing after thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my life is going to end because that means I have to do all these things.
Okay,
it's not true.
Love it. What are their numbers who love it?
Well, my friend, she's a 9. But she has a lot of 6 in her. And my husband loves it. He's a type 6. And they love to kind of think of, well, and I think, you're a 7. 7s love to usually.
Oh, I hate it though. Yeah. I hate it with a passion.
Yeah. But I wonder too if it is also the position that we're in our company. I have to shoulder a lot of the front facing of the company. And so I'm thinking, okay, what's going to land on my plate that I feel comfortable doing, I want to do, I have time to do. And so I'm thinking, oh yeah, all of those ideas do sound really wonderful, but I feel exhausted just even thinking about that. Now, they might come up with another idea that is my sweet spot. And I'm like, yeah, let's totally do that. So I think it just has a lot to do with the position I'm in, because that other friend who's a 9 as well, she isn't leading the company. She gets to think of all the ideas and not be the one to actually come through at the end. And so I think a lot of it has to do more with the position of the company. At least this is my perspective. It could be totally wrong. But I think that's the case. Now, there are, some type 7s out there or 8s, and they totally know what they want. And they're like, this is what we're going to do. And they have vision, and they're casting vision, and they're like, everyone follow me, So my curious question for you is, are you more that way? Like, you have the inspiration and you would love for your team to kind of follow the brainstorming you have already done, versus your team just coming up with all of these ideas that you might have to do or follow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for me, it's primarily I have the vision and then they perfect it. Like, this is where we're going. This is what I want to do. You guys think about, what are the pitfalls? How do we optimize it? How does it get done? And they'll take my vision, which I think is 100%. They'll realize it's probably 80, and then they'll really get it up to 100%. But the messiness of, how about we do this? How about we do that? My brain can't help but go, won't work because of this, won't work because of that, can't do that, hate doing that, no thank you. And that's terrible leadership. So I take myself out of those conversations altogether.
Exactly.
I love it when they brainstorm ideas and then bring me a well-crafted one like you were talking about. But the messiness of, how about we rent an elephant and ride it around Nashville for a day for some reels? No thank you. Sounds great, but no.
Yeah, and so I think it's really helpful if we do know ourselves better to be able to communicate to our team what we can and can't participate in, where they might excel, where we don't, and where do we excel. I can come up with lots of really great inspiration that I'm interested in doing, but I really just can't do it with a bunch of people, because then I just feel like I want to tell everyone, no, we're not doing anything. Like you said, that's not helpful.
Let's talk about your latest project. Number 1, how did you choose it? How do you choose the projects that you're going to work on? And then let's talk about what you're working on now.
Yeah, so we're launching my new book, Enneagram for Moms, July 9th. And, it's a combination when we're thinking about the next project like that. It's a combination of what are the pain points out there? Who needs what? And then I have to kind of consider, is that me or is that not me? Because, my team has come up with lots of ideas and I'm like, no, that is not the platform I want to be a part of.
Enneagram for elephants.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, nah. And they're like, but that will totally be a big hit. And I'm like, yeah, it might be a big hit, but I don't want to engage in that conversation whatsoever. And they kind of look at me like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And that is the one advantage of the 9s. We know what we don't want. We may not know what we want all the time, but we know what we don't want. So, so there is that. So on this project, we were thinking about Enneagram for parents, and Jeff and I would write it together. We've written most of our books together, but we realized that 85% of our audience are women. And so we kind of thought, yeah, we could write an Enneagram book for parents, but I wanted a book for moms when I was a young mom on the Enneagram. And so I really kind of wrote it out of the inspiration of just myself and my own story. And knowing that I think moms would really appreciate a book dialed into them, and they're the ones that are most engaged in our platform. So that was kind of the decision making behind this one in particular. And it wouldn't have been wrong to do Enneagram for parents. And I know that there's going to be dads out there like, well, what about us? And I want to whisper to them, it's the same. Like, just read it for yourself. It's the same. I mean, it's because the Enneagram is not itself gender related.
Right.
I do obviously approach the moms from a mom perspective. But when you get to the back half of the book where I'm nuancing each of the 9 types and their parenting style, it's the same. A dad could read that and go, oh yeah, I can totally see myself doing that. So, but we just felt like it was important, moms, I think they have a lot on their plates these days, and we just wanted to address that, and it really comes out of my own story, this particular one.
Totally. I think of 2 things. One, 80% of book buyers are women, so they're going to give the book to their husband. Yeah,
right,
you're right. It's not gendered. But also, it goes really well. This book goes really well. Like if anyone listening read Remaining You While Raising Them, the theme of that book is taking care of yourself. When you take care of yourself, your kids will do better.
Yes.
You'll be a better mom. Your kids reap the benefits of it. And one of the core things of taking care of yourself is understanding yourself. It's self-awareness and building up your strengths and kind of buffering your weaknesses. So it is just an important message for moms to have, not just for themselves, but for their kids.
Absolutely.
There's habits to break. There's generational chains to break. And the way we do that is self-awareness. We can't pray away behaviors that have been passed down from mom to mom to mom in our families.
Mm-hmm.
That's done with prayer and self-awareness and understanding things and doing the work. So I think it's great what you've written, and I'm so glad you did.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I 100% agree. What I tell people is this isn't the book moms wanted me to write, but it is the book they needed me to write. And what I mean by that is we all want an instruction manual for our kids. Just tell me what to do. And that's just not how it works in life. And so we really focus on the mom understanding herself and how to self-regulate, how to give herself grace and compassion and curiosity and kindness to herself, because God created her to be her personality for her kids and their personalities. He didn't make a mistake. And so how can we celebrate that? And how can we own our weaknesses, like you said, but not in a shameful, judging, guilting way? How can we see those and grow from those? And that's really what the front half of the book is all about. The back half is, okay, let's talk about your type and what your style of parenting is specifically and how you can grow. So that's the back half of the book.
That's great. Really, really smart. Last thing I want to talk to you about courses. So many people in the audience are building courses or have launched courses and have had great success. What are some lessons that you've learned from building your program? What would surprise people to know about online courses?
Yeah, I think what I'm focusing more on lately, and it just kind of goes to how the generations are, is to focus more on short videos, bite-sized lessons, clear, simple, practical, and actionable. Those are all the things that if you're long-winded, you really got to get a team member that can really nuance your message. And just think bullet points. It really, really needs to be bullet points. Now, I'm not saying like it actually needs to be on your workbook or whatever. It doesn't have to be bullet points. But I do think people appreciate that because it feels easy to get through. Oh, I can read these few bullet points. I'm going to have a win. So they feel like they're winning by kind of getting through the material. But the same with when I make slides. One thing I learned from Michael Hyatt was with the webinars that he does, he would have like for an hour-long webinar, he would have like 85 or 100 slides.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot. It's because of people's attention span. They need something constantly flickering in front of them to kind of keep their brain moving forward because we are so distracted everywhere. So I would say the same thing with content. Swiping. On the phone. So I would say the same thing with courses is how can you say the same content and message as quick and efficient, practical and applicable as possible. So just think bite-sized lessons. And that's really what I would aim for. Now that might mean a course that you would have done, let's say 5 modules and each of them are an hour long. Well, maybe you're going to do 20 modules and they're 5 or 10 minutes each. And you're just not going to be able to say all the content you think is important. And maybe you have an upsell. Maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to give this basic information on this course, and those that really want the nitty gritty, I will sell them, more of the content, as an upsell. So there's just a lot of options. But I think if you're going to bring people in, it's got to be these short things.
I agree 100%, and give people a quick win. The days of, I in my program and create a course, one of the first things I say to people is don't put in everything. If you're planning on selling like a $2,000 course and you're going to teach them everything, they're going to be so overwhelmed. Let's give people a quick win. Let's teach them what they need. That's really, really great advice. And you've been so successful at it. It's great hearing that from you.
Yeah, thanks. But, even for us, our big certification program, we're rethinking it and reimagining it to be more of stepping stones and versus just one long course. Okay, so what's a quick win? Okay, so maybe you'll learn how to type someone. And that's one course. And then you keep kind of earning your way up to the certification process. But that way, okay, well, I've learned how to type someone, so I can do typing interviews. Then I'll learn how to coach, and then I'll learn, whatever the next things are, so that they have those quick wins. So we're thinking about even breaking up our big courses into these smaller bite-sized courses for them.
That's a terrific idea. I love it. I love to see how other people are navigating into the future for success.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back on the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom in Smart Girl
thanks for
Summer.
having me.
Remind everybody where to find you and where to pick up a new book.
Yeah. So everything is at Your Enneagram Coach. So yourenneagramcoach.com, all the handles. But the book you can get through there, or you can just simply go to enneagramformoms.com. And we've got like 10 different retailers. So you'll probably find the one that fits you best. So that is another place to go get the book.
That's great. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thanks, Sally.
How great is Beth, right? Always great. I'm giving away tons of copies of her new book, Enneagram for Moms. Share this on Instagram and Facebook. Tag me, tag Your Enneagram Coach, and you'll be entered to win. And if you are watching on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. Be sure you're subscribed, like, and leave a comment, and I'll leave you a message about sending me your address so you can win a book. Okay, now let's move on to the coaching part of the show. Today, I'm talking about how to escape the mediocrity trap, and it is a trap. This is a guide to getting unstuck. If you've ever found yourself feeling moderately unhappy most of the time, but never quite unhappy enough to make a change, that's what I call the mediocrity trap. It's a sneaky situation where things are bad, but not too bad, right? And what happens is it keeps you stuck in a loop because it's never quite enough to inspire the frustration or the anger or the I'm done enough to break free. The mediocrity trap is one of the trickiest ruts to escape. Unlike terrible situations that once you're out, often turn into funny stories or proud moments, mediocre situations just drag on and become the lost years. You may have had some lost years. I've had lost years. Everything I'm teaching you, I teach from experience. So have I had lost years? Yes. Have I been in situations that have been bad, but not so bad that I immediately had to get out? And I look back and go, why did I waste my time? Yeah. Those lost years, they're super boring to live through. They're boring to talk about. It's like sitting in a waiting room with no cell reception, no Wi-Fi, no good magazines, just waiting for somebody to come in and tell you it's time to start living. So if that resonates, or even if it doesn't yet, I'm going to give you a way to either get out, to move past, or to make sure you don't get in one. I want to dive into the mediocrity trap and explore some really practical ways that you can get out of it. So what is it for sure? The first step to getting unstuck is recognizing that you're in the mediocrity trap. Here's some ways to recognize it. Number one, you just have a constant low level of dissatisfaction in your life. You're not miserable, but you're not necessarily happy either, right? This is not in seasons where things are really hard. I've talked to you many times. I've written in books about seasons where I've gone through in my life where things have just been soul grindingly hard, especially with illness, with my husband, with my kids. I'm not talking about that. This is if there's not really a reason for it. if there's not a big reason, if you're not in the middle of crisis, but you're not in the middle of crisis and every day just feels like a repeat of the last day with nothing exciting or fulfilling happening, that could be you're stuck in a mediocrity trap. Another one's lack of motivation. You have goals and dreams, but you can't seem to muster the energy or the enthusiasm to actually go after them. Another one, and this is touchy, it's settling for less when you know you don't deserve less. You stay in a job or relationship or routine that doesn't make you happy because it's not terrible enough to leave. Like, I know that friend of mine has all the red flags that Allie talked about in Remaining You While Raising Them, but she lives right next door, so I'm just going to spend every day with her, right? Not terrible enough to get you to leave. That is settling for less, especially in a relationship. Another one is neglecting self-care. This has been a big one for me. When I'm not doing well and I'm in a mediocrity trap, I don't take care of myself. It's when you don't take time to take care of yourself or prioritize your mental or physical health. You're always putting others first. You're just not leaving room for self-care. You remember in Remaining You While Raising Them, I talked about how moms put so many different things on our list to take care of. Like, even our pets go to the vet more than we go to the doctor. Like, that's how we're taking care of ourselves. The final thing is you avoid taking on new responsibilities or learning new skills because you're afraid of failing or stepping out of your comfort zone. This one is really common. A key aha moment for me was realizing that mediocrity can be just as bad, just as trapping as a bad situation. Because it's not extreme. It lulls you into this false sense of comfort, right? Like, oh, this is just how life is. And when it does that, it makes it harder to recognize the need for change. So what I want to do right now is I want to give you practical steps to escape the mediocrity trap. The first thing you can do is awareness and acceptance, right? That first step is just to acknowledge that you're stuck in the trap. It might be uncomfortable. It might bring up some uncomfortable feelings, some feelings of failure. I don't want you to let yourself stay stuck. If your go-to story that you tell yourself is, I'm a failure, I'm bad, I should have, blah, 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 and you just should yourself to death. I don't want you to do that because this is something that everyone falls into. So it's uncomfortable to become aware of it and to accept it, but it's really necessary. What you want to get to the point with this is you want to accept that your current situation isn't fulfilling you and that you deserve better and that God wants better for you in your life. So the action step with this is think about your daily life. Are you truly happy and satisfied, or are you just kind of stuck going through the motions? I want you to pray about it. I want you to write down your feelings, write down your thoughts. That's going to give you a real sense of clarity over time. It may be, you need a month. You may need to think about it and journal about it and pray about it 3 or 4 different times, however long you need, but give yourself permission to do that. Second thing is I want you to start setting exciting goals, okay? To break free from mediocrity, you need something to strive for. And I know the word strive triggers Christian women more than any other word. I have an upcoming episode with Deborah Fileta in Smart Girl Summer where we talk about that from a mental health perspective and a Christian perspective. The word strive is not necessarily a bad word. We strive to love Jesus more. We strive to love our families. We strive to do things that are going to benefit the world. Strive isn't a bad word, okay? So going back to this, to break free from mediocrity, you need something to strive for, something that excites you, something that motivates you. It could be a career change or a new hobby. It could be a personal project. You may want to grow microgreens. I say that because that's what I'm doing. Whatever it is, something that excites you, something that's fun. Take a bar class. Do something different, okay? Your action step here is to set 1 or 2 big, exciting goals. Big for you could be the microgreens. That's big for me, and it's very exciting. I'm not saying you have to turn your life upside down, so don't let the word big scare you. I want you to make sure that these goals align with what you're actually passionate about and what you're interested in. And I want you to write them down and break them up into smaller, manageable steps, okay? Because if you just say, oh, I'm going to, turn my life over and everything's going to be different, tomorrow you're going to wake up in a bad mood and go, what was I thinking? Allie gives terrible advice. I don't want you to do that. Whatever you pick, think this is what I'm going to strive for. This is what I would like to do. Maybe it's taking ballroom dance classes. Break it down. Step 1, find local ballroom dance classes. Step 2, talk to the people in my family. If you live with a bunch of people, and find out like, hey, is it cool with everybody that I'm going to be gone this time? Figure yourselves out. Sort yourselves out. This is what I'm going to be doing once a week. Step 3, buy whatever you need to buy. New shoes, outfit you feel comfortable in, whatever it is. Little steps to actually make sure you do it. Final step, call, make an appointment, pay in advance. Paying in advance is a great tip, because if you pay in advance, that day when your first class comes up and you're like, I don't know what I was thinking, I don't want to do that after all. That day that comes up around, if you've paid in advance, you're like, well, I've already paid for it, I might as well go, right? It's pay in advance. That's the secret to actually getting your behind out the door and doing stuff. Okay, number 3, I want you to take small and consistent actions. So I say this all the time until I'm blue in the face. Big changes don't happen overnight. I want you to start with small, consistent actions that move you toward your goal. Tiny steps will make a huge difference over time. You don't have to turn your life upside down. You don't have to do these things. Just dedicate a specific amount of time each day or each week to work on this goal. It could be going to ballroom dance class once a week, or it could be that you're learning a new language. So you're just going to set aside 10 minutes a day. Consistency is the key here. Now, the last thing I want to give you for this is to surround yourself with positive influences. This is so key. The people around you can have a massive impact on your mindset and your motivation. I want you to look at the people around you. It can be your friends, your family, your colleagues. Maybe you have a coach or a mentor. And look, who are the people that speak the most positivity in your life? Think about spending more time with them. Spend less time with people who just suck the energy and the joy right out of you. We all know life. There's going to be people who do one or the other. Look for friends or mentors, a coach, friends, a group, people who share your interest and goals. This is one of the things we do in Called Creative so well, is we put women together with other women who want to write and speak. And they go, oh my goodness, it's so good to be around you and learn from you and actually be supported, because nobody in my life understands this call that God's put on me. It is important because people help us expand our territories and expand what we think is possible and build us up, right? Or people will keep us stuck in mediocrity. Spend more time with the people who build you up. So final thoughts, if I have to wrap it up, because I could talk about this for hours, is this: escaping the mediocrity trap isn't easy, but it's worth it. By recognizing that it is actually a trap and setting some exciting goals, taking consistent action, kind of getting out of your comfort zone, and making sure that you intentionally spend more time with people who are positive influences, you can break free with it. You will live a life that's more fulfilling. You can break out of those feelings of like day in, day out, just another day, here I go. We don't want to live as Eeyores, but sometimes we slowly get moved into an Eeyore kind of way of life. I want you to remember that the biggest obstacle to getting unstuck is often our own mindset. Don't settle for a life that's just okay. You deserve to be happy and fulfilled, and you deserve to be excited about your future. So I want you to take that first step today and live out this journey. Escape the mediocrity trap. Lean into what God has for you. Lean into all the excitement and the joy, because I believe that in Christ, your best life is waiting for you. Okay, recommendations. Let's get to it. Okay, if you have Spotify Premium, this year they included free audiobooks, just like you get on Audible. I've already added a bunch to my library. My friend Laura Tremaine, who's going to be on the show very soon, gave me the heads up about this, and I looked. All of my books are available to listen to for free if you have Spotify Premium. As an author, I'm a little conflicted, but I am glad that they're up for free. So If there's any of my books that you haven't read yet and you have Spotify Premium, dive in. I hope you enjoy it. And you know what else I enjoy? I enjoy you being here. I love that you're here. I love that we get to have this time together every week. I really kind of went in heavy on where I want you to go. I want you to get out of the mediocrity trap. I want you to lean into what God has for you. And I push so hard because I know that God created you to stand strong. I know that God created you to do great things in this world. Now, when I say great things, sometimes people get confused, but you know what I mean. That can be something that other people know about, but it can be something that is just between you and the Lord. But I know that we are designed to live a full life in Christ. We aren't designed to every day go, oh, I don't know how I'm going to get through this day, and things aren't great, but woe is me. I guess this is life. That's not the life that He has for us. So keep stepping up, keep showing up, and keep loving well, because you know the truth. You cannot break a woman who gets her strength from God. I love to get to coach you and equip you every week. I'll be back with you Monday, and I hope you have a great day. But you can't seem to muster the energy or the enthusiasm to go after him. I can't say enthusiasm. And